Mr. Chairman, I believe we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Jerry Panico. I'm the vice chairman. I'm going to be acting as the chairman today. So I'm calling the meeting to order. This meeting, as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. So Lisa, please read the roll.
Ranjit Bahav,
Here.
Daniel Bedeker. Do they have to speak, Mary Rose?
I believe so, yes.
Here.
Jim Connors,
Here.
Matthew Connors,
Here.
Dave DeFlameri,
Here.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Here.
Brendan Magnin, Steve Munson,
Here.
Lisa Tryon.
Here.
Jerry Panico.
Here. As we continue to host remote meetings, I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a few guidelines to ensure business runs efficiently and that all statutory and administrative rules are followed. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont executive orders, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford's website. During this meeting, if members of the Inland Wetlands Commission would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature via Zoom. All participants will be muted during this meeting unless recognized by the chair. After being recognized to speak, please state your name and address prior to making a statement. It is declared Commissioner Matthew Connors the voting alternate. At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. If anybody of the public has any comments, they can speak now for items not on the agenda. Anybody from the public? Okay, if nobody wants to speak, we move to all business.
I will share a screen for you so you can look at the site while I read the intro. Excuse me. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. This is a proposed, this is IWA 22021 883 North Street. This is a proposal for renovation and reconstruction of an existing building for a deli with work within 150 feet of wetlands in the Wetland River watershed. Property owner and his contractor started work on this building without city permits last fall and are now working to get permitted to construct on the site. A portion of the building was removed and is now replaced. The gravel parking area and grassed area adjacent to the wetland are stable. City engineer and I met with Rich, the landscape architect from Fuller Engineering on 4/26 last Tuesday, and the property owner to review the plan revisions. Revised comments and plans were submitted in response to that meeting last Thursday on the 28th. City engineer and I responded to those submittals this week. Several items remained outstanding. Joe Griffith, the DPLU director, and I reviewed the application with the property owner this morning in the office, and the entire permitting process, not just in the wetlands. And we received revised comments this afternoon at about 4:30 from the applicant, which were too late to get into the meeting links. I can share them here now. Mr. Rich is here to answer to those. The application was received by the agency at their meeting on the 16th of March. Our 65-day review period on this property runs until May 20th. Prior to the 65th day, the Inland Wetland Agency needs to determine if an application is complete and can be decided upon. If there is outstanding information required for a decision, if a public hearing is needed, or if they need an extension of time to finish their review. So I'm going to share the document that I believe we received this evening. Sure this is the right one. And Mr. Rich is here to answer questions on this.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Mr. Rich, you want to speak in favor of this application? Please introduce yourself.
Yes, I do. Good evening. For the record, my name is Douglas Rich, licensed landscape architect with Fuller Engineering and Land Surveying, offices at 525 John Street in Bridgeport. Yes, that if you recall, last week you didn't have time to look at the changes that we had made in the previous submission. I think we've gone through about three submissions so far, various changes every step of the way, mostly taking into account the city engineer's comments, trying to allay his concerns and strengthen the documents to his satisfaction. We believe, it's in my opinion, that we do have a complete application at the moment that could be voted on. We understand that there will be conditions of approval, and we fully expect that. In our conversations with the city engineer, some of the comments were, well, we can handle that before the building permit and things like that. Comments that you see on this comment response here. What I've tried to do in this comment response memo is to show the items in blue, which are outstanding and need to be addressed, and how we propose to address them. It's our hope that you can incorporate those changes or those comments into any condition of approval that you see fit. The other option, or the other items on this that aren't blue, that have responses, are items that the engineer has looked at and made comments that we've addressed those to the best of our ability and to his satisfaction. Long story short is, we agreed to do anything from an engineering standpoint to meet his satisfaction, and I think he's comfortable with that if you guys are. But with that, if you would like, I can just go through these things quickly, go right down the list and just sort of touch base on the items that are highlighted in blue. A lot of these things are drafting type things to tighten up the drawings, things that are contained elsewhere in our documentation, but maybe not on the plans. Would the commission like, should we go through those? Would that be helpful for everyone to go through the list if we, as we go?
Yes, of course.
Since you haven't
Yes.
seen it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So on page 1, the first item is the B. This is a new comment that came into play on Monday when we got these comments. He's asking for the soil types. He has issue with the soil types being on our plans. Now, those soil types are contained in the engineering report and also our soil scientist report. Have no problem transcribing that information onto our survey. So that's a very easy comment to handle. Item number C, he's talking about different soils and his interpretation of whether it's a D or possibly C soil type. What I will say is that the soil types are first gained from public mapping, the state mapping, which initially identifies the soil types. Then it's confirmed by our soil scientist who you have the report on hand, and she has confirmed that through actual soil testing. So I think that that is our answer, and it's the best we can do at this moment. This is probably better than actually relying on mapping. It's actually relying on testing. So that's in the record. Mary Rose, if you could go to page 2, please. Okay, so again, there's this 2x10 frame construction. This is work that's totally outside of the upland review area. It was a frame that was noticed, that we identified during our investigation, our site survey. They appear to be 2 joists, which are replacing the existing support structure for the old deck that was being modified or fixed. And we're replacing that in kind. So he's just basically everything that he's taken down, he's putting back the way it was. So that will be a support joist that were repaired for the existing deck that's being replaced. Page 3, I guess. Okay. This is a big one for Greg Bydlewski. This has to do with zoning issues, the requirement from the city for concrete curbing and sidewalks and driveway aprons. This is a requirement by the city. We are requesting that planning and zoning, the building department, not require that in this case. This work is outside of the upland review area. It is Connecticut Route 121. It's a state-owned highway, and therefore the Connecticut DOT has jurisdiction about that. And Greg has stated as such. It says if the DOT decides to waive that requirement, the city is willing to waive that requirement as well. So we have submitted our documents to DOT for their review, both digitally and in hard copy, and that's under review. Unfortunately, they probably won't get back to us with a recommendation or a ruling on it for at least a month. So we're probably talking in around June sometimes, well after this hearing needs to close. But I don't believe that requirement of their approval is required for you to pass judgment and approve this or deny this. Just it has to be a condition of approval, and we're willing to accept that. Item M, there has been some concern about the dry well that's in the front. It's an existing dry well. We've estimated it to be about 5 feet deep and 6 foot diameter. That gives us some storage volume. Absent of digging the thing up and actually analyzing it, it's impossible for us to provide greater detail on this as the city engineer was requested. So at our last meeting with Greg and Mary Rose, we talked about providing a alternative solution to the plan, which I guess you probably, I don't know if you see it on your plans, or Mary Rose, do they have access to the plan?
I can show that now. The plans that were submitted on Monday or Tuesday?
It was last Friday. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, the 20th.
So if you can, maybe put your, that the existing dry well is to the left of this rectangle that we show. Greg has asked us to provide a alternative drainage structure within the parking area to address the eventuality or possibility that the existing dry well fails and the water becomes a nuisance onto Connecticut Route 121. We've done that. We're not asking for approval to do that, but he wanted to make sure it was on a plan just in case something happens 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. We have a remedy to address that situation. So we provided that. We don't believe it's necessary due to the fact that we've provided much more drainage compensation by taking the drainage from the roof areas. Our drainage report indicates that pre and post conditions are much better, just by virtue of having the other alternative drainage structure that we have to the south of the building. But we're willing to provide that means of mitigation should that structure fail, become clogged, not operate as efficiently as possible. We did look at the structure after the last two major rain events, and the water level was down low in the structure, which means it's actually infiltrating into the ground properly the following day that it was dry. So in our opinion, it's even though it's a visual observation and not a calculated observation, the existing drainage structure seems to be operating effectively with no nuisance waters, entering Connecticut 121. I think we can go back to the other comments. Let's see. All right, so, and then what we had on our plans before was an errant notation on the grease trap. Basically, the structure that we proposed was called an oil grit separator. These are basically the same structures in terms of outdoor storage. So we've provided the grease separator outside a 1,200 gallon grease separator. He's asking, we've noted H20 loading on the details. He wants it on the plan. That's not a problem. We'll put that on the plan. I believe he's comfortable with that requirement. Again, he's making on item number R, he's making comments based on the soil types that he may have gleaned from other sources. Again, as I stated before, the only thing we can do is rely on our soil scientist and her testing to verify and determine the soil types on the site. She's tested all of the soils and confirmed the soils are what she's attested to. Also, knowing the soil type is sort of, it's not a moot point, but we're going to provide further clarification of soils by testing within the storm drainage areas, specifically those areas for drainage to the satisfaction of the city engineer. Based on that testing, perk testing and deep testing, that will tell us the actual drainage characteristics over there and whether the system we designed will function properly in there. So that's another method of confirmation that the system that we've designed will function adequately. I think we can keep going. Again, we've had some report changes, identifications of meadows versus woodlands, things like that. From a engineering report standpoint, those values used in the calculation of the stormwater are the same. They're just called different things, but they're the same, and the report will not change. But however, we will modify the report to address those concerns to the satisfaction of the city engineer. Item number 3 as well, interpretation of grass cover versus canopy, meadows, whatever we want to call it. Pre and post conditions will remain the same. So it'll have no effect on the reporting whatsoever. We're happy to make those changes as well. So anything that we do as a condition of approval will include both modification of the plans and the reports, subject to the city engineer's final approval. we've also started to modify some of the hydrographs and things like that ahead of schedule, so that we're providing that data to satisfy his questions. Mary Rose, if you could keep going. Again, the Drywell. In his comments, in Greg's comments, he did not mention the auxiliary drainage structure that we propose adjacent to the existing Drywell. I just want to bring that to your attention that we did do that work. He acknowledged it on the phone call that when I spoke with him yesterday. We believe that is what he was looking for based on our meeting with Mary Rose and Greg last week. Test holes, verified his recommendations. Test holes will be taken at the location of the infiltrator system. Again, this is all outside of the upland review area. We have modified the drainage structure to eliminate the level spreader, which actually went into the upland review area. So at this point, basically all of our work is outside of the upland review area, with the exception of a little bit of work for the sanitary sewer, the grease trap, and that connection that once it penetrates and goes towards Route 121. So the difference between the last submission you've seen and this one is that we've actually pulled back some of our work in that upland review area. But again, test holes will be done and analyzed in conjunction with witnessing by the city engineer. Next page, please. Number 3, additional. So again, I keep coming back to this additional drainage. He's asking for that, and we had given that to him. I guess he just missed it here, or he may have looked at a different older drawing which didn't have that. But again, we've provided the backup system in the event that existing drywall does fail, even though it's not failing right now. No problem with acknowledging that we do not create a nuisance discharge into 121. In discussions with the DOT, I've asked them to specifically look in their records to see if there is any record of nuisance discharge into the state system. That will be part of their basic review that they have in hand right now. That as that document travels, from staff to staff within the DOT. Milford Health Department, we are 5 and 6 go hand in hand. 6 we've addressed. That we have to have written confirmation from the health department. I'm also proposing to put that specific requirement for requiring written confirmation for the connection to the municipal. So that will be just a note change on the drawings. Number 7. Soil types, we've talked about that already. We will put the soil types on the survey, which in turn will be manifest itself throughout the drawing set, since that's the basis of our design. Item R, we talked about that. We acknowledge we will make those changes as contained in item R above. He says that work impacting North Street directly or indirectly is subject to review and permitting by DOT. That's acknowledged, that's in the process, and we have submitted to the DOT for their approval. Number 10, curb sidewalks. Again, planning and zoning issue. We are seeking relief on that. However, if we don't get relief, or if for some reason we need to put in sidewalks, although I don't know why there are no concrete curbs along Route 121, there are no sidewalks, and of that, so it's not consistent with what exists now. However, if we are required to do that, we will do that. It's outside of the upland review area, so I'm wondering and hoping that you will consider that as part of the approval. If we have to come back and do that, Mary Rose, I don't know if that's considered administrative approval or it has to go back to the commission, but we're willing to undertake whatever needs to be done at this point. We don't know what's going to happen with regard to that, since we don't have a recommendation from DOT yet.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can interrupt, we can't approve things that aren't on the drawings, and we can't have drawings modified after our approval. We have to base it on the drawings we have. We can condition city engineer's requirements or the health department's requirements, but we can't approve something for a drawing you're going to submit later.
Well, if I might, I'm not asking for approval on that. I'm just asking the process for getting, as we go through the next process of getting this approved through our planning and zoning. If for some reason they require us to change our drawing, can that modified drawing be submitted back to you or the commission for a review, and you'd say, well, it's outside of the upland review area and it's not going to affect anything in the wetlands, therefore we can give you a referral back to planning and zoning at that point?
Right, we would have to look at the drawings for that. There's wetlands across the street from this, so you're in it. You have wetlands that are coming 150 feet, your review area that's coming 150 feet from the wetlands that are on your property in the rear. You have wetlands that are also coming 150 feet from across the street. So you're there's a large portion of your property that's in the review area.
Okay.
And so I can't tell you that I would say there was no interest or no impact from something that I haven't seen the drawing on at this time.
Okay. I guess at this point, we're willing to take that risk, thinking, that from conversations with DOT, they do not maintain concrete curbs. Even if a concrete curb is put in and it gets destroyed by a plow, they're going to replace it in kind with bituminous. So whatever we do is not going to be maintained by the DOT for whatever reason. And I understand that concrete curbs are put in on Route 1 routinely on a state road. That's a different area, and as there's precedent for that, but I don't believe there's precedent here for that. So we'd prefer not to do that if at all possible. And then Mary Rose, you had some comments. I got those today, and again, we talked about the completeness of what we believe is the complete application, subject to conditions of approval. And we're more than willing to accept specific conditions required by inland wetlands and the city engineer is required for this project to move it forward. You had some comments about the notes on the erosion controls. I just would say that, yeah, there might be some overlapping comments and redundant comments. I really don't have a problem with redundancy, although it's not a very good thing in drawings because that gets you into trouble. Things on the erosion control notes that might not be specific to this project. We typically leave most of that stuff on there, except for the most, hardcore things, but it handles any eventuality that we might have should the project require it. Although the drawings themselves take precedent, and that's what we're proposing is simply silt fence and anti-tracking aprons. It's nothing major, and we certainly wouldn't be looking for any other aggressive sedimentation erosion control measures on the plan. downspouts. That was something we talked about at the last meeting or our staff meeting. The intention of the underground storage system is to capture all of the rainwater off of the roof structure of the building. We do show a pipe going towards the building, but we don't show the connection around the building, simply for the fact is at this point, we don't know where the downspouts are going to go. Those are usually put in after the roofing has been on there and as the installer pitches his gutters to the location where he deems fit. Suffice to say that all of the rain water from the roofs will be captured by a subsurface pipe and directed directly to, directed to the stormwater detention system in the most efficient way possible. Apologize for that. Next page, I think. That the last one, maintenance plan. No problem putting a maintenance plan on the drawings. That's something that I can will add to the set. It's a very simple thing. What happens in the eventuality of, or how do they maintain the infiltrator units? How do they maintain that existing Drywell system? I have no problem whatsoever adding that information to the plans to make it a permanent record on file. Again, written confirmation from the health department regarding the abandonment of the existing septic system and written requirement for the connection of the new 8-inch sanitary line to the existing sanitary line in 121. That's not a problem, and we have submitted drawings to them digitally. I've copied them on everything that we've been talking about in terms of submissions. I have spoken with them on the phone about things, especially about the abandonment procedure, and we will continue to work with them to get this to the required permits that are necessary. I don't see any change in design since we've gone through the design changes and comments from the city engineer. And I believe that we've got a good situation here to meet their requirements as well. And with that,
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Wright, you said that you've submitted drawings into the health department because
I've every submission that I've sent you guys, I've copied everybody from them. So I mean, have I filled out an application for that? No, we have not filled out an application, but they are aware of the changes, and I've had phone calls with them to get their advice and the procedures and how they would like to see the abandonment, particularly the abandonment of the system, and what they recommend, and that's what reflected on our plans. So
I apologize. I had spoke to 3 out of the 4 sanitarians, including the director, and no one had seen these. So I couldn't confirm that.
yeah, I can't confirm it either. No one has responded to me in terms of the information I've sent them, but they were copied, or people from health were copied.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rich. Any commissioner has a question in regards to this application? Mr. Manson, Commissioner Manson, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Mary, question for Mary Rose. We have received no response about any communication at all regarding this application from the health department. Is that correct?
I spoke with the health department yesterday and Monday to try to catch all the sanitarians, and they have no record of the application. It's not in the permitting system, and they said they're waiting for it to come in because they had seen the zoning violations go out last fall. So it may have gotten caught somewhere. Maybe it went to a wrong address, but they don't have it.
Okay. Is it your opinion that anything we could get from the health department could change the application or change the requirements of this application?
The change drawings that you're looking at here, we go to the sheet. Maybe that doesn't have it.
That's your plan right there. Yeah, right there.
This one,
Back up, one up, the sheets C 3.1, that one, yep.
and I'm looking for the, okay, so this is the concrete cover here is the septic system, or could be the cesspool, we're not really
Tank.
sure.
Yes,
Right, it's a tank. And then the water supply well is here at the edge of the wetland. Any work for this well to bring it up to code in order to it may require work in the wetland. This may require more work, obviously, in the upland review area that overlaps between here and from across the street. The agency could look at the plan that they have before them and approve this plan. If there's substantive changes to this plan, we can't approve plan changes that are coming in. If there's gonna be changes to the plan. So we could potentially approve this, and any changes made by any other department will require the applicant to either come back and modify this plan or to bring in a new set of plans, depending upon what the changes are, which is the discussions we've had, as this application has moved forward. So, will there be, able to just pour something in, whatever this is, and abandon the septic system? As the, I know Mr. Rich is the landscape architect. I assume their engineer has decided that that is the best method for it. The health department hasn't signed off on that yet. What, if anything, may or may not be allowed to do to this well, I don't know. There is no city water in 121. So if we're going for water, that's a very long push over to Kozlowski Drive or over to Bolt Lane. If you have to do something to the well, you're right on the well. So those are other items that we've brought up for the last several months to say, hey, you should address this because it's going to impact this plan going forward. And apparently there's been a disconnect there. So the agency has before it an application for this building to be rehabbed. To add stormwater is required under MS4 for the city engineer. We don't have how the water is getting into the system until we get the architecturals, which don't exist at this time. But the building is semi under construction. We've got a grease trap to catch the water coming out of the kitchen sink, as it's proposed to be a deli, and that's required under the health department. With a separate now water line for other water uses in the building. And a box where, assuming that the soils can take it, or soils can be put in to take it, if this drain doesn't work, that can be retrofitted to act as a dry well in this parking lot. So that is what the agency has before it. Any work anywhere else will require another permit or modification to this permit. And again, we can condition items that the city engineers required for other entities, but changes that are required for this agency, we can't approve a set of plans that we don't have before us.
Of course.
We accept that. I mean, that's our risk. We started this whole project trying not to do anything, just do the bare minimum to the site so we had no disturbance. We're simply just trying to bring it up to code. The well itself, I looked at the well and it's relatively a new wellhead out there. It's not an old old well that's been there for 50 years. It looks relatively new, freshly painted and installed. It's a traditional wellhead that exists in any home yard or business. So, for that standpoint, we're seeking not to do major disruption to drill a new well or change things out here. It's functioning fine, and we'd like to keep it as is. So with the health department's approval, we'd like to move forward under that condition, unless they decide it's not adequate.
Any other commissioners has any question? So Mary Rose, I think you already mentioned, or you have anything to add to the agency recommendations?
No, I've prepared, I didn't know at the time that I was creating draft motions today that we were going to get an answer to the comments this week. So I prepared motions for you that include no action, a site walk,
Mr.
requiring
Chairman, I'm sorry. I think Commissioner Tryon has a question.
Okay.
I think.
My apologies, Lisa's hand is up.
Oh, I apologize. Commissioner Ryan, go ahead, please.
No, I'm curious, and I think Mary Rose was heading us in this direction, that it still seems that there's still a lot that needs to be finalized. I mean, just simply from looking at the wetlands, the engineer says that soil type B is indicated, but maybe in fact it's soil type C or perhaps D. It's noted that it's meadow, but perhaps it's probably woods. I'm confused. It seems like things haven't been finalized just yet. And I'm wondering if it's premature to take an action, but that might just be my naivete. I'm just concerned that there still seems to be unanswered questions. So that it's more of a comment than a question, I guess. That's it.
Thank you.
Can I address that?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, the danger of these extensive comment lists from the city engineer, it looks like it's a massive amount of deficiencies. However, these are items which will not change any of the hydrologic analysis or results of our analysis. The drainage system as designed reduces the peak flows on the site from a pre and a post. If you look at the site from just an aerial view looking down here, what is being done on this site is no change in impervious cover. There is no change in drainage patterns, amount of water going into the wetlands. Actually, I take that back. There's probably less water going into the wetlands because we're capturing water from the roof right now, which was never captured before. So we've, just by the nature of what we've proposed, we've substantially improved the drainage conditions and the health of the wetlands from that action alone. Yes, I get it that terminology in the report is differs from what is interpreted by the city engineer. I have no problem making those changes to his satisfaction. And that's really what we're looking for is meeting the engineering requirements, engineering requirements to his satisfaction before we're allowed to get a building permit. I still stand by the idea that the work that we're doing does not impact the wetlands. We're doing everything we can to protect the wetlands from any site disturbance, the minimal site disturbance that we're proposing. Basically, it's our contention that the wetlands are protected, and there is no impact in the wetlands, particularly since 99% of the work we're doing is outside of the upland review area.
if I may, Mr. Chair, just interject.
Yes,
Mr. Rich, as a landscape architect, is it you speaking on behalf of your engineer and your soil scientist? Do we have that from them? Or is it you speaking in your professional opinion about the quality of the infiltration, the quality of the wetland, the quality of the water infiltration?
Well, yeah, I'm speaking from my opinion, basically, on that matter. Just looking at the site as a whole. Typically on any job that we do, which may or may not require engineering, we first look at the changes that are introduced into the site based on coverage changes, such as adding pavements, building additions, things like that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can respectfully request, I'd like to rely on the city engineer's review of the information. I'm not an engineer. Mr. Rich isn't an engineer. So rather than going into another discussion of our feelings about how the water will infiltrate and if this will satisfy engineering standards, I think it's the responsible thing for the agency to rely on an actual engineer to give us that information.
Well, let me just say one more thing. Those are my rationale. The only other rationale that we could use from an engineering standpoint is the actual testing done by the soil scientist. That's not my opinion. That's her opinion. That's her confirmation on the soils that were actually tested and analyzed throughout the site, and that's contained in the wetland delineation report, and it's also analyzed in our stormwater report. And that's from an engineering standpoint, that is probably the highest level that we can rely on from a data standpoint. But also from a rational standpoint, it's easy to see that what we're doing is beneficial to the infiltration of the water and beneficial to water tables and groundwater and things like that. So it's a combination of all.
okay, thank you, Mr. Rich. We appreciate that you've been working with Mary Rose and the engineering department. I think we still have to wait for the engineering department, if I understand correctly, to give us the approval. Is that correct, Mary Rose?
The agency has the option to do anything they'd like this evening. I would recommend that we have something from the city engineer. We don't have an engineer's testimony, and we're looking at what we're doing with changing water location and things. We're also looking to have things, Mr. Rich has said in his letter this afternoon, he would change the plans with things. We don't have those plans to refer to in an approval.
Mary Rose, I think we should table this until we get all the questions answered.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Chairman, I think Matt Connor's question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Connors.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair. So just based on all the information over the past 20 minutes, basically we are waiting on the city engineer. We're waiting on Mr. Reich to go through and make the updates to the plans, and then those plans will be approved or will not be approved by the commission, but we're just waiting on updated plans at this time, right? So my opinion is that we take no action until we receive those updated plans.
Thank you, Commissioner Connors. So if there is no more comments, are we ready to make a motion?
The actions the agency can do this evening, they can ask questions, they can take no action, they can request additional information, schedule a site walk, schedule a public hearing, approve the application, deny the application. The agency can take up a motion, or they can determine they want to take no action at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I agree with Commissioner Connors and Commissioner Connors. I'm not sure. I don't think we should take any action at this time.
I agree wholly.
I think the information has come in I think we could use a little bit more time to review the information.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Munson. So this commission will decide to take no action this time?
Yes, I make a motion that we take no action at this time until all the questions are answered and the plans are fully done.
Second,
Thank you. Lisa, do you have to roll call to vote or? if
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you read back that motion? No action until all questions are answered and plans are done? Was
Yes,
that your,
that was my motion. I'll rephrase that, the plans are complete.
thank you.
And maybe we should have, okay, from the health department and the city engineer, likewise.
We'll do that.
That was a motion made by Mr. Connors and seconded Mr. Matthew Connor, I'm sorry, Mr. Jim Connors and seconded by Mr. Matthew Connors.
No,
Yes,
Jim Connors and I thought Steve Munson.
Jim Constant, okay, thank you.
I believe I did.
We need a vote.
Okay, I'm just writing as you are. Okay. Ranjit Bahav,
Yeah, I agree with the motion.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
aye, yes,
Matthew Connors,
Aye, yes.
Dave DeFlameri,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Yes, aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye,
Lisa Tryon,
Aye.
Jerry Panico.
Aye, yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rich.
Thank you.
So we move to item D2. Is that correct, Mary Rose?
Yes. Item D2 is, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm sharing the screen. Item D2 is 0 New Haven Avenue. It's the violation issued 3/28/22 for work in and adjacent to a wetland associated with Turtle Creek in the Indian River watershed without a permit. Agency modified this information, modified the submission dates for this violation at our last meeting to require plans and a mitigation monitoring report from a soil scientist by the 31st of May. They were to get additional erosion controls in by last Monday. I spoke with Attorney Cursaden this afternoon. Mr. Monaco has retained his William Kenny as a soil scientist to flag the wetlands and is working to retain a surveyor. They have requested that they be allowed to submit an A2 survey for the front portion of the property along New Haven Avenue, where the violation occurred, and do a Class D survey for the remainder of the property. I'm going to share a screen with you for a moment. This was the violation as it stood last March. As you can see, the work is here mainly in the front of the property. And if you look at this aerial view, the property is here, but the property lines go out into here and all the way up. And I'm in the wrong place and I apologize. The screen got moved. Property is here. This is the veterinary clinic. This is the chiropractor on New Haven Avenue. This is the Dunkin' Donuts. The property is this site here and goes all the way up here towards Pepe's Farm Road and over to Furniture Row. They're asking that they be allowed to just A2 the front portion of the property where the work was done and not be required to do an A2 survey in the swamp at this time. They're having a little difficulty getting surveyors given the extent of the survey.
do you feel, Mary Rose, do you feel that's adequate or realistic?
I think that's adequate and realistic. I don't have a distance for the agency to modify the requirement to at this time. Mr. Kenny's going to go out. We want to find out where the wetland line is and ask that the survey go at least that far in order to get an accurate depiction of what work was done and what mitigation will be done.
Yeah, because actually there'll be nothing done in a swamp anyway, in reality.
So, and the work didn't get that far. We were called and we went out immediately and stopped the work at the street edge. So at this time, I would recommend no action, and we should have some further information for a modification for the survey at the next meeting.
I think that sounds good.
Mr. Chair, I agree.
Thank you. We're gonna take no action then. Anybody will read a motion? Mr. Munson will read a motion for this? Or no motion?
I'll make,
Take no action.
you want me to make the motion? I'll make the motion. I make the motion.
Excuse me, I thought you didn't have to make a motion if it was no action. You just did no action.
You don't need a motion for no action.
Okay,
Okay.
no motion then.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, the next item would be item D3.
Yeah, so we're going ahead with, yes, D3.
Item D3 is violation IWC 220011, 918 Wheelers Farms Road. It's a violation of the issue 330 for work in and adjacent to Turkey Hill Brook without a permit at our meeting on the 6th of April. Meeting upheld and modified after speaking with the property owner, Mr. Raymond Testo of Freedom Vines and Ron Wasmer of Connecticut Civil Group. Since that time, I've walked the property with Mr. Wasmer and seen the flagging done by Mr. Kenny. They have submitted to me this afternoon a preliminary map. Their full map is anticipated next Friday for our meeting on the 18th of this month. So I would recommend no action at this time.
Okay, let it be, no action.
Okay. So no action for this application. So we go ahead with item D4 then.
Item D4 is IWA 220035 589 Bridgeport Avenue. This is an application by CDP Milford LLC for redevelopment of the Kmart site at 589 Bridgeport Ave, with work in and within 100 feet of a wetland in the Housatonic River watershed. The applicant's proposing to remove and replace the Kmart building with the residential units and to renovate the exterior of the remaining retail areas on the site. They're proposing to do work in 1.62 acres of the upland review area with a temporary disturbance of 330 square feet. During construction, areas proposed to be disturbed will have the invasive species removed and will be replanted and stabilized with native species after construction for 330 square feet of wetland enhancement and creation. We received this application at our meeting on the 20th of April. And at that time, the agency requested information about educational signage, wetland boundary markers, and snow storage areas, which was submitted and is in the links. This evening, we have Mr. Attorney John Nuff, the engineer is John Schmitz, and I believe I saw Sagan Simcoe, who is the professional wetland scientist.
Good evening, gentlemen. Mr. Nuff, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney at 147 Broad Street in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of CDP Milford LLC, which is contract purchaser of the subject property. As Mary Rose very thoroughly reviewed, we were here before you on April 20th. I think we did a pretty thorough presentation for the night that was for the evening that was received. I don't want to put words in the commission's mouth, but I think the application was well received, subject to some additional information that we're happy to provide. In fact, we're happy to do everything that the commission asked us to do. And rather than belabor this, I'm going to turn it over to John Schmitz, and he can walk you through the plans and probably share his screen and show you the changes that we've made at the commission's request.
Thank you, Mr. Nuff.
Sure. Thanks, John. For the record, again, John Schmitz, civil engineer with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden, Connecticut. What I'd like to do is just kind of briefly walk through some of the revisions that we made that we submitted to the commission last week. Mary Rose, would I be able to share screen?
Yeah, you should be able to at this point.
Okay, let's see then.
Is it working?
Let's try. Let's see.
There we go.
Here we go. Okay, you should be seeing the site plan SP2 on the screen here.
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. What we did here was to incorporate the request to provide for wetland boundary markers. I highlighted them on this plan. And you may recall that the wetlands on our site are to the south end of the property, actually behind the existing Kmart. And so what we did was we proposed to install boundary markers along the boundary of the wetlands, basically. Throughout, there's roughly a couple of dozen of these markers spaced out at least every 25 feet or so. We would put a marker at each of the wetland flags where there's a change in the direction of the line. And I'll just flip over to show you the detail sheet. So here what we did was just provide a small detail of what we would propose, basically a typical type medallion indicating the wetland conservation area. And then the medallion would be attached to a 4x4 pressure treated wood post that would be sunk into the ground. And that would again be established roughly every 25 feet or so along the wetland boundary. In addition to that, we were asked about snow storage and how we plan to handle that. And we submitted a plan. This is sheet SS1 showing snow storage throughout the entire development. As you may recall, again, there's a front portion, the north portion of the site be retained as commercial, and the rear parcel would be converted into a residential development. So we looked at creating snow storage areas on both of those parcels. Snow storage, for the most part, would be relegated to areas of landscaped areas where we would be able to provide for snow storage and push snow during winter months. Along the perimeter of the parking areas, we've highlighted areas. I'll just zoom in as an example. Here, we've been able to highlight areas adjacent to parking areas along the perimeter, parking here, as well as some other perimeter areas and islands throughout the residential. We do have a large area in the center of the residential where we currently have a clubhouse and a pool proposed. There is additional land there that could also be used for additional snow storage if we ran out. But again, you may recall that the last meeting when we talked about snow storage, one of the important things is that as snow is pushed, it picks up pollutants from the parking lot, oils, sands, that sort of thing. And so the idea is that when the snow is piled, it eventually will melt, and that runoff is collected into the stormwater system, and therefore that runoff will also be treated for pollutant load and will be removed from the runoff stream. So what we've done is put the snow storage areas in locations where, as it melts, it will still be collected into the storm system. So again, that's a quick rundown of what we did propose. I know there was one question that was asked by one of the commissioners about the two rear buildings. That would be these buildings number 6 and number 5, which are the closest buildings that abut the wetlands to the south. There's a question as to accessibility from those units to the wetlands. And I could share that the units on the lower floors there would have exterior patios, a small patio space, but the patio would be fenced in. So you wouldn't be able to walk right out your back door and walk into the wetlands because you would be on your patio, which would be fenced in. So no direct access from those units to the wetlands. I just wanted to point that out. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Smitty, if I can jump in, I think there's also the request last time for some educational signage, and Mary Rose is kind enough to send us a sample of that, and she had recommended 2 different locations for, or she recommended 2 such signs. And we're happy to accommodate that in whatever location Mary Rose or the commission would deem to be the most appropriate.
Right, and what I'm doing is sharing that exhibit here, which I think was used on another site in the city of Milford, and we'd be happy to modify this for our needs. But I think this is a good example of what we could provide on our site again, and somewhere along the wetlands. A couple of signs again on a post that would help to educate the tenants who would be living in the residential properties.
So I think that was all of our homework assignments that we have from last time. If the commission has any questions of Schmitty or Sagan, obviously we'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, I have a question. Mary
Go ahead.
Rose.
Yes.
And I was looking at this plan for the snow plowing shelf. You have a very, very large parking area, and you are no way going to pile all that snow on those little islands. And just from my own personal experience with plowing, it's not going to happen. I mean, you'll get all these parking areas, you're going to get humongous piles of snow. And I think you should have better area to put it in than just what you're showing on. And plus the islands that run perpendicular to those parking spaces, the snow is not going to end up on those islands. It's going to end up on each end.
Right. And again, this is John Schmitz. I could address that. So, the plan here is to, again, highlight areas that are available for snow storage.
Yeah, but I don't think it's adequate. No way.
Well, what I'm saying is that we're providing room for the snow storage. Obviously, there will be a maintenance company that will be employed to come out and plow the snow. And what we're saying is we're highlighting areas where the snow can go. At least on the residential area, we have some additional storage areas in the center of the site where snow could be placed. There can also be areas, again, we highlighted a 5-foot length or a 5-foot area beyond the parking that could easily extend wider. And we just chose 5 feet, obviously recognizing that snow packs down when it's plowed.
No, actually, it multiplies when it's plowed.
Okay. So again, just, back to the point of the snow storage again is trying to place it in a location such that when it melts, it gets into the storm system. I think that's what we tried to accomplish with this plan. I know that in some areas, some sites, snow is piled up in parking spaces. And again, it's the same situation, that the idea is that the snow is captured and melted. And when it does melt, that it gets into the system. So we're a little restricted in that sense, that we can only put snow where it's going to be melting into a location that we can collect it.
And I think the other concern commissions typically have is to ensure that the snow isn't being plowed directly into a resource area. And really, there is no opportunity for someone who's plowing snow to do that in this situation, because the wetlands are located along that southern boundary, and there's really no way that a plow could get in and just push the snow over the curb into any resource area. I mean, in a really large storm event, obviously, that the maintenance company could have, plows come in and trucks to remove the snow from the site entirely. So there's adequate parking for all the residents.
Thank you, Mr. Nuff. Mr. Smith, is any other commissioner has any comments?
Yeah, hi, my name is Ranjit, and through you, Mr. Chairman, I guess this parking area seems very excessive. I guess I was wondering if there is any opportunity to reduce the parking and make it a pervious surface, or make it a green surface, I guess.
No, the amount of parking we show is actually tied to what the zoning regulations require, and I think we may have a smattering of extra spaces, but there is not an overabundance of spaces. We're pretty much spot on with what the zoning regulations require.
Okay, and then the second question is, there was a mention of about 300 square feet of temporary wetland impacts. And I would like to know what alternatives were considered to avoid those impacts.
Right, John Schmitz at the last meeting described how, we're being very careful not to intrude into any resource areas. And we showed a very tiny temporary impact because it was Mary Rose's recommendation, and one that we took to heart, that we show a small disturbance in a resource area where I believe there's a number of invasive species. And then, so as when they're doing the construction, they have adequate room to, manipulate the machinery around that area. And then we would, restore that area once the construction is complete. And obviously with non-invasive species. So, we're taking great care to stay out of any wetland or watercourse area. And to the extent that we are, it's very minor, it's temporary, and we're going to be improving the location of the plantings in those areas.
Okay, thank you.
For you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious, just going based on the other Commissioner Connor's recommendations in terms of extended snow storage. Would you say that any place that you put the snow on the parking lot will lead to the collection that you were discussing of removing the pollutants? Or are those designated spots that you highlighted the main places that will collect that runoff?
Yeah, so what I was alluding to was that the locations where we put where we show the snow storage, they're in areas such that when the snow melts, it would get into the catch basins in those areas and then into the storm system. So it would run through hydrodynamic separators.
So it's safe to say when you're saying you'd look to the third party to potentially, like in major snowstorm events, to possibly in those specific areas use up parking spaces to store the snow.
I think this parking spaces could be used on a temporary basis. Obviously, we have tenants who live in the residential units that need their parking spaces, and of course the commercial needs parking. So if there was snow piled there, I think it would be on a temporary basis until it could be removed.
Understood. And so just to justify Jim's concerns, would you say that during those major storm events, you basically do everything possible to get the snow in those areas that collect all the pollutants?
The answer to that is yes. And if you look at it from sort of the opposite end, there's really no place where we can put the snow, even if it didn't go through the collection system, and it will. There's really no place where we could place it that it would have a negative impact on the wetlands. As I said, there's no opportunity to plow directly into wetlands, and even if some of the snow got into a landscaped area, obviously it would be then melting into pervious ground, and then which is obviously another form of treatment. So
understood.
I don't think there's anything to indicate that there's any likelihood of any kind of any harm to the wetlands as a result of snow plowing.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Mary Rose, you have any comments on this application?
No, the application is complete. It's had a thorough presentation. The proposed impacts on the lower area next to the wetlands were potential impacts during construction that I thought might be an issue, and we thought we'd address that now rather than find it in the field. And I think that's very responsible of the applicant. It will also remove some invasive species and provide some native species in their place. The applicants answered questions for the Agency for Educational Signage. They've located where the wetland boundary markers will be and where the snow storage would be. So I think they've covered all of the agency's concerns on this site.
Right.
The added benefit, which was presented at the last meeting, is that currently all stormwater from the Kmart site goes into a stormwater pipe that is piped across Lansdale Avenue and discharges directly into Beaver Brook by Jonathan Law High School. This plan brings that stormwater system up to today's standards and pre-treats all that water, so that water that now goes into Beaver Brook will be pre-cleaned. And I forget the exact square footage, Mr. Schmitz, but they've decreased the impervious surface on the site as well.
Mary Rose, I have one other thought process on this, on the post for the markers. Why don't we use a PVC post instead of a pressure treated, and the PVC will never rot away and fall over?
I think either is fine, Jim. I agree the PVC might be have more longevity. The areas where these markers are going to see very little people traffic.
Okay.
So Mary Rose, you recommend we should make a motion on this? Anybody has any more comments before we go ahead and make a motion?
I'm satisfied. I'm just satisfied with the modifications and ready to make a motion.
Thank you so much.
I agree.
Is this a motion to agree, approve?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make the, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, after duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IWA-22-0035, 589 Bridgeport Avenue, based on the plans entitled Land Development Plans for Proposed Mixed-Use Development, 589 Bridgeport Avenue, Milford, by BL Companies, 39 sheets dated 4/19/22, sheets dated SP-2, DN-2, and SS-1 revised 4/26/22. The information on file and presented this evening for the following reasons. This action will not have an impact or effect on the physical characteristics of the adjacent waterlands and watercourses, with conditions including the permittee must submit a construction plan prior to taking out the permit. Wetlands notification to be placed on the as-built and in the property deed to give notification to property owners that permits are required from the MIWA to work on the site. Documentation to be submitted to the MIWA office prior to bond release. Compliance with the city engineer's requirements for stormwater. A permit condition bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA for S&E controls, wetland boundary markers, and an as-built showing finished 2-foot contours and locations of all sites for structures. A mitigation monitoring bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA prior to site disturbance for mitigation plantings, and a minimum of 3 years of mitigation monitoring by a professional wetland scientist, which reports to the MIWA twice a year for a minimum of 3 years. Report to include the status of the site and any recommended corrective actions and amendments to the mitigation plan for best stabilization of the site. If there is a recommended corrective action, there must be an inspection and a report by the professional wetland scientist within 1 week of the corrective action being taken. In construction or maintaining any structure or facility or conducting any activity authorized hereon, the permittee shall employ best management practices to control stormwater discharges, to prevent erosion and sedimentation, and to otherwise prevent pollution of wetlands and watercourses. Best management practices include, but are not limited to, practices identified in the Connecticut Guide for Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control as revised, 2004, Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. Department of Transportation's Connecticut DOT drainage manual as revised, and the Department of Transportation standard specifications as revised. The permitting must submit a certification by the project engineer that the completed project meets the design intent and the approval prior to bonds being released. The permit is issued 5/4/22, expires 5/4/27, unless otherwise provided by statute. That is my motion.
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioners. Lisa, you call to roll.
Ranjit,
Yeah, I agree with the motion.
Daniel,
Aye, yes.
Jim Connors,
Yes.
Matthew Connors,
Yes.
Dave DeFlameri,
Yes.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Yes.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Lisa Tryon, Jerry Panico.
Aye, yes.
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
gentlemen.
good evening, everyone.
You
Thank
too.
Mayor Rose, I think we're moving to item E, new business.
Yep, we are on item E1. Give me a
One.
second. Here, I can share this with you. Nope. Here we go. This is item E1 is IWA 220038 668 New Haven Avenue. It's a proposal by Hassemeyer Enterprises to construct a mixed-use building with work within 100 feet of an inland wetland, including grading, retaining wall, and stormwater discharge. The approximate distances from the proposed site improvements to the inland wetland line are not shown on the plan we've got in front of you. Hold on a second. There we go. It's about 22 feet from the riprap dissipator charge, dissipator pad to the wetland line. It's about 53 feet to the retaining wall. It's about 63 feet to the grading, and it's 99 to 100 feet to the edge of the building. This evening, we have Mark Davis of West Cotton Mapes presenting the application for us. I did walk the site with Mr. Davis and the owner, Jim Hassemeyer, a few weeks back. I apologize, I do not have those pictures for you this evening. The site's a fairly disturbed site. Had a significant amount of some knotweed and was a nice little wetland area back in here. That area is proposed to be touched. It's immediately adjacent to apartments that the agency approved at 690 New Haven Avenue that's currently undergoing construction. This building over here, you may be familiar with, is Dogtown. It's a hot dog stand restaurant, just to orient you to the location. And Mr. Davis is here to present.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Mr. Davis, good evening. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, Mark Davis. I'm the owner of West Cotton Mapes, and I'm the engineer for the project. Our offices are at 142 Temple Street in New Haven. And then I don't know if I can share my screen, Mary Rose. I can.
You certainly can. Give me 1 second to stop my
Bring up our
share.
colored plan.
There you go. You should be able to.
Okay, just take me a moment to get this up. If you can all see that color drawing that I have here, I can kind of go through just real quickly. The again, we're proposing a mixed-use building here, kind of shown in brown. It's 6,200 square feet. Upper and lower level together would be 12,000 square feet. The upper level would be leased out for metal woodworking shops, those types of uses on the upper level. With the entrance from the front and the side. The lower level, which is kind of a sort of a walk out basement type of configuration,
would be used for a private parking garage. What we're looking at is folks that have maybe a sports car or a classic car that they want to get out of their garage and store. They would then store that in there. We have a driveway to get around to the back side of the building, and also parking associated with that. We have a storm drainage system, catch basins and piping. We have a hydrodynamic separator, to catch the hot dog wrappers and the road sediment, so that doesn't go out into the wetlands. And then we also have stormwater retention to provide for zero increase in runoff. The outlet pipe for that, and I would note we've laid that pipe designed that to be very flat, and so our velocities coming out the end of the pipe are going to actually be 0.3 feet per second. And so that will protect against any erosion. Of course, we'll also have riprap there at the outlet facility. Anything that comes out of there that's not stored in the stormwater detention. I've colored here. There's an area. Most of this area back here that's shown and I show it here in light green, but that could continue back here is tidal wetland, and then that rises and falls twice a day. It's associated with Turtle Creek, and then what is in darker green is the inland wetlands. There's a band of inland wetlands between the tidal and the uplands. Also, you can see here this dotted line that runs along here would be the limit of the 100-foot review area. We also there's a the AE flood zone is back here. We've got a line that shows that, and that's the reason we have a retaining wall, is so that we're not doing any filling into that flood zone, so that we can keep that available for the 100-year flood. That's what we're proposing to do. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Davis. Any other commissioners have any questions, or anybody else to speak in favor or against this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just curious on Mary Rose's thoughts and opinions on the application, what her concerns are, if any.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The site is currently fairly stable, although heavy with invasives. This proposal with the retaining wall in that location will keep the majority of construction a good, about 50 feet away from the wetland. This discharge pipe is only the high level overflow, I believe, of the infiltrator system. So it's unlikely to have a significant amount of water that could erode into the wetland. Water will infiltrate from the system and percolate through the groundwater to get through the wetland. And with the low level outlet, unlikely to get real erosion in this area. There are trees in this area along the ridge, along the edge of the wetland. The area where if I remember correctly, the area where the outlet's proposed is, there may be some brush and a couple of invasives. There wasn't significant vegetation in that area. So I believe the design as proposed is to have the minimal amount of work immediately adjacent to the wetland, and to avoid impacts thereof. Cleaning and pre-treating the water before it comes out, besides being state standards and statutes, will protect the natural resources. The retaining wall, to avoid any fill in the flood zone, is an excellent idea, so we don't have any water pushing onto adjacent properties and coming up onto this, should not come up onto the site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Do we have any satellite views or any other views from the site?
Sure, I can show you. This is actually fairly close to the site we looked at a little bit earlier. Is my screen sharing?
Oh, I think I'm still, I may have to unshare here. Let's see.
Right.
Okay.
Are we seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So we were here earlier, we were seeing my cursor near where it says 162 at 0 New Haven Avenue.
Yes.
Right, and then as we come up, we've got, I believe
Yes.
the site is right here and underneath the numbers that
Yes.
say 668. So you can see the vegetation. There is a fairly heavy stand of knotweed behind Dogtown if I lose the base map.
Haven't we
Maybe.
looked at this site before?
No, where we look, Jim, Mr. Connors, is immediately next door, this house here,
Yeah,
which is now in the process of becoming condo style apartments.
okay.
We did walk that site. We walked down and back in here. We looked at the tidal wetland location with Jennifer Benno, who was the soil scientist of record of that property. I'm sorry, and Scott Stevens. So we've got some knotweed here that's been taken down over time. This is the Dogtown facility.
Okay.
And so the site is here roughly. The base map back, unfortunately, I get the overlays. These buildings have been removed. Some of this vegetation, there's a couple of trees that were falling down when they were doing the tree work for the apartments. And that developer, Mr. Field, asked Mr. Hasselmeyer if he could take them down because he didn't want them falling into his new buildings. We had a couple of heavy windstorms when that tree work was done, and a few other trees fell down. They have been taken down. But otherwise, this is nicely wooded back in here. And if you can see from Mr. Davis's plans, the retaining wall is roughly equal to the back of this building, this warehouse building.
Okay.
And if you go back to the aerial, the warehouse building's here, so the retaining wall is roughly here. So this vegetation would only be disturbed mildly in this area for the construction of that stormwater pipe.
Thank you, Mary Rose. A question, is the application completed? Is complete, doesn't lack of any extra documents that we're requesting?
I do believe this application is complete. We have not received the city engineer's review back as of yet. We did just receive it yesterday. We are just receiving the application and hearing it for the first time this evening. So the agency tonight can ask questions. They can request additional information. They can consider a site walk. They could consider a hearing if they felt that necessary. But at this time, we cannot make a decision. We need to wait 14 days in the event that a petition is submitted for this property.
Do you feel a sidewalk is required on this?
It's a fairly simple and easy site to walk. It's got a bit of knotweed on it, but it's definitely a possibility. I do have photos from my walk with Mr. Davis. Unfortunately, I don't have them to show you this evening. And I believe Commissioner Tryon has a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I'm confused a little bit about the retaining wall. Is this actually a wall that has some height to it? That if you were in the parking lot, the retaining wall would be a few feet higher or many feet higher, or it's just a drop off? What is the retaining wall?
Yeah, if I can answer, the wall will be, it's at the edge of the parking lot. The parking lot will be higher. It's about 4 feet maximum. It'll vary from 2 to 4 feet high. And then the grade on the other side towards the wetland and towards the flood area is lower than what the parking would be.
Oh, okay, so then I have a follow-up question, if I may. I'm not quite sure what sort of a business is that wall going to be attractive to kids who are going to want to jump and then tumble over into the wetlands? Would that be something that could happen?
Well, the business is going to take place in that lower level is to rent out spaces for people who want to park their classic cars or sports cars or old guys with Maseratis that need a place to put it. So we don't anticipate children being back there.
How about stopping somebody from driving off it?
We put a, well, there'll be a guardrail or guide rail at the top of the retaining wall.
Would it make sense to perhaps have just a signage at that point saying, beyond here is, wetlands, potentially, this is land that should be protected, just so that people wouldn't do anything stupid, because they do that sometimes, so they wouldn't be throwing trash or, dumping water or something, to let them know that this is the demarcation of a important conservation area.
We'd be happy to put any type of signage that you'd like to see there. I saw the signage from the earlier application, something maybe along that line. No, there's no reason why we couldn't provide that if the commission wanted us to provide that. From the agency wanted us to provide that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Is there any planting plan proposed in this application and near the retaining wall or as a buffer?
Well, our plan was for the area beyond the retaining wall to remove any invasives, but otherwise leave it natural and not take down any more than we have to. We got a narrow area to put that storm drainage outlet, which would be maybe 10 feet wide going back to the end of it. But otherwise, we would like to leave any vegetation that's there that's established, leave it there and not disturb it.
Thank you so much. Any commissioner has a question?
Yeah, this is Ranjit. I had raised the hand, but
Go ahead.
so I have a question for applicant. So they mentioned about the velocity that comes out of the velocity of the stormwater. I would like to know what that velocity was.
Yes, 0.3 feet per second, which typically if you're going to discharge onto bare soil, you want to be below 2 feet per second. So it's going to be very slow, and that's due to that outlet pipe being pitched at only 0.5%, so that we don't get any erosive velocities coming out the end of that.
Yeah, so I guess I would like to know if alternate outfall protection treatment such as a level spreader was considered.
Well, we will provide outlet, a riprap at the outlet of that. A level spreader would be, at this point, would be more disruptive. We would have to dig up quite a little bit more area adjacent to the wetlands to provide something like that. So we really didn't entertain providing something like that.
No, but the benefit of the level spreader is it will retain the water and then it will slowly discharge it. I agree that the velocity is way too low to cause any damage, but I guess regardless with this, the storm intensity, going up every year, and this outlet will still, create like a concentrated flow location, which is not there today. So we are going to introduce a new flow location. So in my opinion, something like level spreader, which will, slowly release the water instead of the riprap at the riprap will be more useful to prevent the erosion downstream.
Well, we are accomplishing that by providing the stormwater storage under the parking lot, and that's with retention galleries, we're storing the stormwater there, and actually would serve the purpose that any level spreader would provide. And so that's our inclination, is to provide the storage there under the parking lot and allow it to soak into the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mary Rose, do we have any recommendation? So in order to, what is going to be our next move for this application?
Well, the agency needs to wait 14 days to take any action on the application. So if the agency would like to see additional items like signage or what have you, or planting plans or what have you, now's the time to ask for that, and then the applicant can bring that back for the meeting on May 18th.
Okay. I think we all agree the signage is important in all the projects that we are approving, right? Mr. Davis explained about the planting, that he doesn't want to disturb the original vegetation in the area. Was there anything else that the commissioners thought that it was important to add to the application?
Yeah, I have one more quick question. The disturbed areas, how are they going to be treated? So, there will be some disturbed areas for the placement of the storm drain or for the placement of the retaining wall. There will be some areas that will be disturbed temporarily. So what is the plan to put some sort of vegetation on top of it?
We would seed those areas. I'm hesitant to put anything that would have any type of roots that would go in and try to get into the drain and work its way into the joints. And so those areas would be seeded with, an appropriate mix of, for those upland soils that where that drain is being placed.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Yes. Mary Rose?
So at this time, I'm hearing that the agency would like to hear what the seating mixtures are for the different areas of the site and where educational signage may be placed.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then at this time, the agency can decide if we haven't received a petition, if they need a public hearing, if they need a site walk, and we've requested the additional information already. So if there's no other actions, the agency can take no action.
Thank you. I think for the next meeting, before we approve, it would be nice to see the photos of the site and see what are the conditions of the wetlands at the moment. So instead of having a sidewalk, if all the commissioners agree.
I agree.
Okay, I will have that report up and out to you, hopefully by the end of this week, but most certainly when the agenda goes out next week.
Thank you, Mary Rose. So we are taking no action, and we're gonna see this application again on our next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So Mary Rose, we're moving to item F.
Yeah, we're looking at the consideration minutes of the previous meeting. That would be the April 20th meeting. And those minutes were sent, TAP sent those minutes out.
I'm going to abstain on that because I wasn't at that meeting.
All right.
Yeah, me too. I also wasn't there.
Matthew
Same
Connor
for-
as well.
Heather Gladue as well.
There were only 5 members at that meeting. Hold on a second while I remember who those were. Does anyone want to make a motion for the minutes?
Mr. Monson?
Chairman, I would like to move that the minutes from the April 20th, 2022 regular meeting as presented and as amended be accepted.
Second.
If I can interject for a second. I write that draft motion so that you can accept the minutes as they're presented, or if anybody has an issue that I don't know about, as presented. So you may want to choose which one of those you want to go with.
I'm sorry.
If you said presented or as amended, you have to pick one.
Oh. As presented.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Monson. So, Lisa, we call roll call vote.
Yep. So Ranjit, you abstain, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Dan,
I agree.
Jim,
I abstained.
Matthew,
I abstain.
Dave,
I abstain.
Heather,
I abstain.
Steve,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
it's 4 people.
And that, the motion passes of those members available and voting.
That were there, okay. Motion passes.
Thank you, Lisa. So we have item G, staff report.
Right, we'll do a quick one since we had a long meeting. Office has been rather busy. As spring moves forward, we get a lot of new applications in preparation for new applications and complaints and minor reviews, various flooding and other projects going on around town. As we've seen this evening, the legislature has extended Zoom meetings indefinitely past April 30th. These meetings can be held this way as long as votes are done by roll call, and a terminal is made available for anyone who can't access terminal to view the meeting. Meetings are also simulcast on the YouTube when not in conflict with other city meetings. We're still celebrating 50th anniversary of the Connecticut Inland Wetland and Watercourses Act, and State Water Plan committee is doing outreach. There is a link in the notes that were sent out to you and usually gets transferred into Lisa's minutes that there's registration for a webinar that's May 11th, which is next week from 12 to 1 on wetlands and climate change resiliency. So that's available and free and open to the public. There's another webinar on June 8th that'll discuss rivers and water courses, the importance of riparian zones, and I will send you that information when it's available. Commissioner training's open. I've gotten a couple of commissioners sending in their certificates. Congratulations and thank you to Heather for taking the class. And our sites really haven't changed much. We're still working with a number of people. Milford Cemetery did have their first spring inspection. It was completed. They had some minor invasive issues and unfortunately some minor damage from ATVs to their driveway areas, thankfully not into the wetlands. They'll be working on getting their wetland boundary markers up for the spring. We'll expect that next report in the fall. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Nope.
Thank you, Mary Rose. As a chair report, the next meeting will be the regular meeting on May 18, 2022 via Zoom. Please let the office know if you cannot attend and get any questions you have on the applications to Mary Rose so she can forward them to the applicants. So we're going to be adjourning then. If there is nothing else, do I hear a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you so much.
And Heather, and unfortunately, we have to roll call vote that.
And Lisa?
Ranjit, Ranjit Bahav,
I think he may have. I was here.
No, I'm here, yeah.
Okay.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Yes.
Matthew Connors,
Yes.
Dave DeFlameri,
Yes.
Heather Gladue,
Yes.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Lisa Tryon,
Aye.
Jerry Panico.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
everyone.
night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank
Good
you.
night, all.